Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
This week we're going to talk about group ride etiquette, tubeless tyres, but first a really interesting question about what happens to your body if you cycle the bike every single day of the week. Let's get into it. Sarah, let's get into it.
Okay, first question. I have a friend who doesn't cycle at all. I'm trying to convince them to start riding to and from work 30 minutes each way. I know cycling is amazing and has been life-changing for me, but I can't seem to articulate it to him. Can you help me explain to him why riding to work is the right choice?
Okay, let's park the obvious that you're not stuck in traffic. We'll park that obvious and assume he's been able to articulate that. The calorie burn is an interesting one. So I was running, we don't have any details on it, but I was thinking about if you take a hypothetical 70 kilogram person, 154 pounds for the Americans, and you burn roughly 400 to 600 calories per hour cycling at like a moderate intensity. So over 5 hours in the week, that'd be a 30-minute commute each way. He's going to burn 2,000 to 3,000 calories extra per week. And to lose 1 pound or 0.45 kilograms of body weight, you need to burn roughly 3,500 calories per week. So he's creating a calorie deficit enough to lose roughly, give or take, 1 pound per week just by commuting in and out to work. It's like 4 pounds a month. That really starts to add up.
Yeah, that definitely works. When I used to commute into town for an old job years and years ago, I got a car, was able to finally afford a car. I started driving in and the weight just started
Had a cross
coming on
the way in. So you went from negative 500 to plus 1,500.
Yeah, almost straight away you could see it. And it wasn't even at like blistering rate. It was just a nice leisurely commute into my office. So I can confirm that it works.
The part that's hard to articulate is, it's why I stopped getting the bus. I started cycling because I started cycling to college because I was frustrated with getting 2 hours of buses to university every day, and it was a 30-minute cycle. The part that I think is hard to articulate is the mood change in it. Cycling, like a lot of other aerobic exercise, or maybe all aerobic exercise, it triggers the release of endorphins, which are natural mood elevators. So that's going to help reduce the feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. Cycling every day has also been shown to lower cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. And it also helps with emotional regulation and reduces tension.
Do you find that it reduces tension? I have to say, I cycle every day these days. I'm in a big training block. I'm absolutely wrecked. I think my tension is going up.
You can do too much of anything for sure. It's like, we're talking about a 30-minute cycle. Yeah, there's a tipping point where, chatting to Fred Wright on the podcast, he said for him 3 hours. If he rides for 2 hours, he's in a great mood. He's more energized for the rest of the day. Because another one is it boosts brain function. You're starting to get more blood flow to your brain, which helps with creativity, cognitive speed. And there's been tests to show all this. But when you start talking about riding for 2-3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, like if you go and ride 200k, you come home and you're useless for the rest of the day.
You're not going to get anything else done. That's it.
And a big one for me is it builds mental resilience for tasks in the rest of the day. You wake up in the morning, like I rode early-ish this morning. I got out the door for about 8:25 or so. Got out the door. It was pretty overcast. It was drizzling. Like nobody wants to go out in that weather. So when you get out the door, the very act of getting out the door, I think willpower is like,
it's a win.
It's like willpower is like a muscle. It just gets stronger the more you use it. So yeah, I think there's some of the reasons that the bike is probably a good choice for your friend. It's also, like we said, maybe going to save him 2 hours, an hour and a half commute. You're going to sleep better too.
You're going to sleep better, but be very, very careful because commuting is a gateway drug to actually buying yourself a road bike. And then you are going to be one of those people who spends all day Saturday, all day Sunday writing in questions. Okay, next question. Hi, Anthony. I've been working with my current coach for a couple of years now, but recently I feel like I've hit a plateau in my progress. I'm not seeing improvements in my performance and communication with my coach has become less frequent. I'm starting to wonder if it's time for a change, but I'm not sure how to know for certain. How can I tell if switching coaches is the right move, and what should I be looking for in a new coach to make sure I don't end up in the same situation? And that's from B.
You could change the word coach with, I'm thinking of looking for a new wife. And I'd say it's the same criteria here. Like a lot of time when you start pointing the finger at someone else, like there's 4 fingers pointing back at you. Like, are the problems with you, I would start out and say,
this is coming from a coach.
Yeah. Like so much of the time though, is communication starting to break down? Like, have you been engaging in this communication? Are you hitting a plateau? Well, like there is natural plateaus that happen in training because your availability hasn't really changed, or you've missed a lot of sessions. So a new coach isn't going to, we can confuse motion with progress. We can think that just because we move to a new coach, it's all of a sudden going to be better. But why was this coach a good choice in the first place? What made you trust him? Why were you drawn to him? And what is he doing to break that trust? Or are the problems that are underlying this move, are they more you problems than him problems? My first protocol would be to try and patch up the current relationship, because I think the history of the relationship's worth so much. Like if you get a chance to work with an athlete for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, the depth of that relationship, like you've seen what happens when they go through turmoil in work, when they have a bad crash. You understand this stuff, and all of this informs your training around them.
Yeah, having that history. Like, yeah, exactly what you said. Why did you sign up with the coach? And this listener B said that they've been working with the current coach for a couple of years now, which is an indication of you obviously enjoy the type of communication, the type of motivation that the coach gives you. You know, we have a coaching company as well, and different athletes will like different amounts of attention. You know, some athletes like literally like an email once a week, and some people want a phone call every couple of days, you know. So it's like trying to figure out the cadence of communication, and then, as I said, that motivation piece. Do they like tough love? Do you have to tiptoe around them? Is it very softly? And this coach has been working really well for you for a couple of years, so that's really quite a find. So I'm with you, Anthony. I think go patch this up, send him a bunch of flowers and box of chocolates, bring him out for dinner, and have some deep and meaningful conversations about what it is. Maybe it's like a plateau. He said that he's got a plateau in his progress. Think about your goals. Maybe you just need to try something new, like racing, or try gravel, or get into mountain biking, or maybe even a bit of variety, the gym, a couple of runs, something like that. But I think he does have to have a look internally rather than externally.
Yes, I think the plateau is a time to reflect, not to jump. But then the second part of that question is, if he reflects and he says, no, actually, I've been reaching out to the coach, I've been sending him WhatsApps, he's not replying, I've been putting notes, I'm not getting emails back. Like, that's problems on the coach's end. And that's when I think you're looking at, it's time to jump. And I actually think there's never been a better time since I've been involved in the cycling industry to be able to assess which coach you go to, because almost every top coach now, they're putting out so much training information. They're guests on podcasts, or they have their own podcast. They have vlogs. They have contributors to forums, to keep blogs, all this stuff, YouTube channels. You can go and you can assess tens, if not hundreds of hours of their content and see, okay, I'm a high intensity guy. Is this a high intensity coach? I watched a podcast the other day from a previous coach who used to coach me that I love the guy, but I just didn't get on well with the coaching style he had. And then I listened to that podcast and I was like, oh, I can totally remember why we didn't get on well. Every day was intensity. And with a busy schedule, that's very hard to do, because you're using a lot of your willpower to get through the day. And then you're left with a session in the evening that's just so hard to do. And this was constantly happening. But if I had that foresight to sit down and watch some of his material in advance, I said, hey, you know what, he's just not the right choice for me. Yeah. He's the right choice for someone else.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think are the couple of things that people need to look out for if they're looking for a coach? I know, like, I do all of the first protocol is usually me when people want to sign up for to go with one of the roadman coaches, and sometimes they don't even really know what they're looking for,
Yeah, I think so. When I'll get around in a kind of roundabout way to answering this. So when I went through law school, you come out the end of it, and some of the graduates are quite young if they've had, like, especially in law, where you have some super talented academics and they come out the far end, and then you might have like this 24-year-old real pretty little blonde, and she's going into law, and they historically do very, very badly in law, because who wants a really pretty 24-year-old blonde representing them when their life is on the line in court. You want somebody who looks like they're weathered, somebody who has life experience, who's lived these experiences.
Sounds like Legally Blonde. They've made a movie about this.
Pretty much. But I actually think the same in coaching, because there's such a culture of full-time riders trying to make a sideline income, and fair play to them. I done it when I was a full-time rider. But I actually think they're the worst type of coaches. If you haven't experienced this stuff, how can you prescribe sessions to a client who's a super busy executive if not only have you never lived that life, but you don't even have a friend who's lived that life? You haven't experienced any of this. There's plenty of coaches out there now, especially with how the industry has matured, who are in their 40s, who are in their 50s, who are in their 60s. Like, for me, still one of the very best coaches in the world. He's in his 70s. It's Joe Friel. Like, that's where I would be looking at maturity, because I think that has so many untold benefits.
And it depends on what you want to do and where you are in your own journey as well. Some people that come to us will need a little bit more love. They will need nutrition advice. They'll need somebody to talk to them about race day tactics, to look at what the race day or their event looks like, to specifically train for that event. So there's loads of amazing questions that you should ask before you sign up with a particular coach. So but if you don't have a coach, everybody, don't buy that new bike, don't buy the new wheels, get yourself a coach. It makes such a difference. Okay, next question. Hi Anthony, I've been riding in group rides more often, and I've noticed that some riders in the group tend to surge ahead, which causes the rest of us to constantly adjust our pace. It's starting to get frustrating and makes the ride feel less smooth. What's the proper group etiquette when it comes to avoiding surging, and how can I help manage it without coming across as bossy or disruptive to the group?
It's a good question, actually.
It's a great question. Can I make an observation?
Tell us why you surge.
Well, okay, a couple of things that I've noticed is that usually when new people join our group, and they don't really understand group etiquette or how to ride in a group, that there will be a lot of surging. The other thing that I have noticed, and I know people are going to come for me in the comments, is that if a triathlete comes to our group, I find that they do that as well, because again, they're probably not used to cycling in a group and kind of the cycling etiquette that comes with that. And then sometimes I do it. I know if I go to the very front of the group, I kind of panic.
It goes to your head.
I kind of panic, and I'm just like, oh, I'm at the front now. I need to push really, really hard, and it's kind of my time to do all the work. And the watts go up, and I'm not very good at
rabbit in the headlights.
I was out on a group ride a few months ago, and Sean McKenna was with us, and I went to the front, and he rolled up beside me, and he was like, Sarah, it's after going up like 30 watts since you went up the front, and I don't have those extra 30 watts. So it can happen. I think people just aren't concentrating. They're not really reading the group, and making sure that their pace is consistent as well. So Anthony, I'll let you take over now and answer this.
I think understanding why surging happens is a good point. I think you kind of hit that at the start. Lack of experience, like all those things you identified, you triathletes, they all fall in broadly into that lack of experience. Or also, I think you identified over enthusiasm. People get up there and they just really want to fit in and they want to impress, and they're not too sure of the etiquette. Road conditions play a role as well, especially if the group is quite strung out. You could be coming over the brow of a hill and you surge it a little bit, and that has an oversized impact down the far side of it. Like coming up the hill, someone's trying to hold 400 watts because you're going down the hill a little bit faster, or through twisty corners. I think you see that elasticated effect in races a lot. I think to stop surging, you want to just maintain a steady pace when you're on the front.
You're eyeballing me here.
I like the kind of sniper analogy: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like when you're rolling through, you don't need to roll through like 8k an hour faster than the other person. You can also say to them, hey, I'm going through, like clear communication. I'm going through, get off the gas a little. So you can just ride through and maintain the speed of the group. Your speedometer is brilliant. Like look at your average speed. The speed shouldn't go up when you go through. The speed should stay consistent. Now, the riders on the front do need to ride all of them like quite hard. Like it needs to be a zone 3 effort on the front. Maybe if you're the weakest in the group and you're riding through, it doesn't need to be a zone 4 effort. You just do a shorter turn, because if you're riding through at zone 2, going it's weekend, it's endurance, and you're riding through at zone 2, the stronger guys behind, they're going to be hardly pedaling. Their heart rate's going to be about 40 and they're going to die of hypothermia in the back of the group. So it's about protecting that whole like community within the group.
Yeah.
Also, being predictable, holding your line. I think that stops surging, because when someone's not predictable and they don't hold their line, it often has a cascading effect all the way back, where someone will dab the brakes, someone else will dab the brakes, and then people have to surge to close the gap. So surging doesn't only happen at the front, it happens in mid-group.
This podcast is sponsored by Whoop. It's the world's most advanced health and fitness wearable. Whoop is the only wearable that actively coaches you towards your goals, and it shows you the impact that certain behaviours and habits have on your health. And right now is a great time to get started with Whoop, because they've just kicked off their Sober October challenge. So why not give your body and mind a little bit of a reset with a 1 month break from alcohol? Sounds tough, but I can tell you it's not. Last year, Whoop members who spent 1 month alcohol-free experienced loads of improvements to their sleep, resting heart rate, variability, and loads more.
And I think the thing with that is you don't need to get started with your 1 month challenge on October 1st. It could be October 31st that you get started on your 1 month challenge. For me, like if anyone's listened to the podcast, I had a wipeout on the mountain bike about 5 weeks ago. Tore my rotator cuff, broke a bunch of ribs, and went into a little bit of self-destruct mode, where I started out having like a glass of wine a night, and then I was like, oh sure, I'm not training tomorrow, I'll have 2 glasses of wine, I'll have 3 glasses of wine, I may as well finish the bottle. And it's like, what am I doing here? Well, when the Sober October thing came along, I thought it was an interesting chance to compare data from my Whoop in the period where I was feeling sorry for myself, in the period alcohol-free. And I'm actually shocked at the difference it makes. Even 1 glass of wine, the difference it makes to my heart rate variability, my restorative sleep. And then anecdotally, if you tie that data to how you feel the next day, it's insane. So if anyone hasn't experimented with this, I think you're drastically going to cut your alcohol consumption all year if you observe this data. Like Whoop have been good enough to give us a bunch of free months to hand out to listeners of the podcast so they can try this. So the link is going to be in the description below. I highly encourage you to go and try this, and try drinking. Great excuse to drink. Try drink for a while, then use your Whoop to observe the effects on heart rate variability, sleep, resting heart rate when you're drinking and you're not drinking. So if you want to get that free month, it's join.whoop.com/roadman, and it's going to be in the description below. Try it and let me know how you get on.
And that's a killer for somebody like me who's really has to stay on the wheels to try and maintain their effort and hang on in there for the day. Is this surging is so energy sapping for somebody like me, because you're doing all these mini accelerations over and over and over again, and it's just a killer.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
It's just a killer. The one thing that I do know that really like grinds your gears when you see people up the front is 2 things. Freewheeling, okay, up the front. So it's good etiquette.
Well, that's back to just people are going to get hypothermia in the back.
Yeah, you should be working. And if you're fit enough to stay up the front, as you explained there a second ago, do longer turns at the same pace. If you're not as fit, don't be afraid to go up the front, but just do a shorter turn.
The speed stays the same. It's like if you're fitter, you'll ride a little bit longer. If you're not as fit, you could just roll through, hold the pace. But like essential to all this is clear communication. Like if you're not very fit, you don't need to wing it. Like you can just say to someone, hey, I'm actually like kind of hanging on here for dear life. Can you just roll through and get me off the front?
Oh yeah, I have no pride when it comes to that. I just point to my power meter and I'm just like, my heart rate's at 170.
But most of it's like people don't like being told what to do. Everyone's adults in the group. You know, people might have senior positions in their role. They're leaders in their community. They're leaders in their family. And then they come out and someone's like telling them, you're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong. And it's like, it doesn't create a nice environment. No one likes being told they're doing something wrong. Instead, just try to lead by example. It's a much nicer way to do it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Okay, next question. I actually love this next question. Hi, Anthony. I've been struggling with gear changes on my bike, especially when I'm climbing or trying to pick
Sounds
up
like
speed.
you wrote this question in.
Yeah, again, another question by me. Every time I shift, there's a loud clanging noise and it feels like I'm losing momentum. What's the secret to shifting gears smoothly and quietly? Are there any tips or techniques that I can use to avoid that awkward noise and make my transitions more efficient? And that's from Harold.
This is really easy. Get rid of your Campagnola.
Yeah, we had a great question last week about Shimano and SRAM, and at the end we kind of touched on Campagnola, and we're just like, just don't get it.
It's so bad. I have it on my time trial bike. It's so bad.
But I can really relate to Harold's question here, because when you change gears, there's never any thudding or clanking or loud chain noises. It's all very, very nice and smooth. And
I think it actually is a little bit more complex than, and it's only when I tried to break it down to teach you how to do it, I realized how little I understood about it. Like, I just naturally do it through trial and error. I don't actually know how to do it. So I've tried to actually get it out here. Shifting early on climbs, like if you're looking ahead and you're approaching a hill, you need to be shifting into the easier gear just before you get to the hill, not on the hill. The drivetrain doesn't shift well under tension, and it's once you start the hill, you're under tension. So you're shifting also before you lose speed. You're not waiting until you're dropping to 4k an hour to start shifting. So both those points are like anticipatory shifts. I think that's really important. Another one is to slightly ease off the pedals. Again, it doesn't like a lot of tension in the system, to slightly ease off the pedals as you're shifting the gear.
This one has been a game changer for me. So I'm pressing the lever to change the gear, and I'm momentarily, for a split second, not pedaling.
Reducing the pressure on the pedals, not pedaling.
Yeah, exactly. And that has made such a massive difference to me.
Yeah, shifting under full power, it makes it harder for the chain to move smoothly between gears, and that's going to cause that clunk noise all along. I think practice it as well. Practice the timing of it, like how much you need to come off the pressure, because I can't emphasize how momentarily it is. It's not like you're coming off for 3 seconds. You're coming off the pressure very briefly. You're not stopping pedaling, just off the pressure very briefly for it. Another one is shift one gear at a time. Avoid these big sweeping all the way from the bottom of the block to all the way at the top of the block. Or you see newbies coming into the base of a hill and they just do everything wrong. They wait right until the base of the hill. They slow totally down. There's tension in the system. They've slowed down, and then they decide to shift from the 11 to the 28 in one go. And it's just this vroom all the way up the block. That's a really bad idea. Like,
you're going to lose your chain, probably.
You're going to lose everything. You're just going to fall apart totally. Maintenance of the drivetrain also really helps. The drivetrain needs to be clean, and the drivetrain needs to be lubed for it to shift properly between them. Good idea is just after you come in after every single ride, like even if you don't clean your bike, it's okay to have a dirty bike the odd time, despite what Instagram will tell you. Come in and clean your drivetrain, because it wears so fast, but the shifting is so bad as well when it's dirty. Getting someone at bike shop, if you don't know how to do it yourself, to check your gear index in, inspecting your cables. And then the last one I think is the right gear combinations. If you're cross-chaining, it doesn't shift well. So that cross-chaining means if you're on a traditional 3953 setup in the front and you have like a 2111 or something in the back, you don't want to be in your 39 and then your 11, because the chain's going to go all the way across. Conversely, you don't want to be in your 53 and your 25, because the chain is crossed all the way over. Shifting in that's going to be really clunky. Cross-chaining
is something that really, really distinguishes a newbie from somebody who's a little bit more experienced. Is something I still do occasionally if I'm kind of struggling to get into the right gear. But you will know that you're cross-chaining because it's quite audible. It just doesn't sound nice. It's kind of scratchy and
also costs more watts if you're struggling.
Yeah, of course. One other tip that you forgot here that you gave me, which has completely changed my life, was when you're moving from the big ring to the little ring and you're looking for more, you want to go from, let's say, the big ring down into the little ring, to go harder, to go 2 or 3 gears harder before you put it into the little ring, if you get me. So can you explain that maybe a little bit better? So there's not such a massive change. You're in a really hard gear in the big ring. You go down to the little ring and you're spinning really, really fast. So
it's quite grade independent though. So that's not like always. So
it's still a really good tip though.
If you think about like the rollout of gear is what like a gear actually is. If you do one full rotation of the pedal, you have overlapping gears in the big ring and the small ring. So I would typically shift a little bit before on the back, before shifting on the front, to kind of match up that rollout. So the rollout change is not going to be huge. So I'm moving from like an 86 to an 85 rather than moving from an 86 to a 75, because then that's this drastic change in cadence then.
Yeah, that has been one of the the best tips that you've ever given me. Yeah, you told me how to do that just before we did Alto de Letras in Colombia a few years ago, and I was like, why am I only learning this now?
Every day's a skill day.
Okay, next question. Hey Anthony, I've been hearing a lot about tubeless tyres lately, and I'm wondering if it's time to make the switch. I ride mostly on the road with the occasional gravel or rougher surface, and I've had a few punctures recently, but I'm not sure if tubeless is worth the hassle or cost. What are the main benefits, and are there any downsides I should consider before making the move? And that's from Al.
If you're riding gravel, like, there's no downsides. You need to be on tubeless. You're riding gravel, riding mountain bike, you need to be on tubeless. There's no other way to do it, really.
I think he's just bringing his road bike across gravel occasionally. I don't think he doesn't mention actually gravel biking, so let's assume that he's just on the road. If he's
on road bike, I still think it's worth riding tubeless. The downside is, like, you got to invest about 15 minutes into a YouTube video to figuring out how to change a tubeless tire. It's really not that hard. I taught you how to do it last week.
It's not rocket science. It's just fiddly.
It's fiddly, and it's a little bit messy the first time you do it. There's actually
there's sealant
all
here,
over.
And there's sealant all over our fireplace.
Yeah,
and
Sarah made an absolute nightmare.
Seriously, don't do it if you've got long nails. Just avoid it or find somebody to do it for you. Your nails are going to get wrecked, hun.
So, yeah, like, it stops. I can't even remember the question. It'll catch punctures. So if you puncture with tubeless, you're going to get a small little needle prick in your tire. The tubeless sealant's going to run in and it's going to fill that gap for you. So the upside is you may never puncture again, which is a pretty good upside. The downside, if you do puncture big enough out on the road that the sealant doesn't catch the puncture and you need to put a tube in, it's a little bit of a messy tire change roadside, because you're getting all the normal dirt and grime from the bike plus the sealants all over your hands for the tire change as you're trying to put it in. That's the worst case scenario. And then when you come home, if you want to go back to tubeless again, you need to take out the tube, which has sealant all over it, clean that off, now put in some fresh sealants, and now reseal up the whole system. You're going to need to buy a new pump that can seat tubeless. It's a slightly different pump with a bigger chamber. You're going to need to buy yourself tubeless ready wheels, tubeless ready tires, some nice sealant, and boom.
Yeah.
Robert's your father's brother.
The pump is kind of cool, isn't it, with the chamber? So you have to seat the tire on under pressure. So it looks like a normal pump, and then you pump air into this chamber and then you release the
chamber. They're all slightly different though, but everyone's
it's like fire in the hole moment. The dogs literally leave the room when we're doing it because they can sense that the pressure is building. It's I don't know, it's if you're on tubeless you should still carry a tube with you though, shouldn't you? It's not like
because if you get a nail into it and the tubeless sealant doesn't catch it, you're going to have to put a tube in to get home.
Okay, amazing. I still have tubes.
You should have known the answer to that, maybe, considering you're using tubeless.
I still have tubes in my road bike, so I don't think I'll be changing over any longer, but let us know how you get on with that change if you do it, Al, and let us know in the comments if anybody is completely opposed to or their life has been completely changed by tubeless. Last question: is AI more effective than working with a human coach, or is it better as a tool to complement traditional coaching methods? I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether AI has a place in cycling training.
Transform your indoor cycling with Rouvy, the platform that brings real-world routes and augmented reality to your training. Whether you're preparing for a big event or you're just looking to explore, Rouvy lets you experience legendary rides like Alpe and Passo de Stelvio from the comfort of your home. Rouvy's unique augmented reality technology uses real-life video and GPS data to create the most realistic cycling experience available. You'll feel every climb, descent and turn with precise terrain replication, giving you an authentic outdoor ride indoors. Plus, with AR elements like avatars and banners, the ride really feels totally immersive and interactive. With over 1,500 routes and 25,000 kilometers, the world's most iconic cycling destinations, Rouvy is perfect for cyclists of all levels. Whether you want to enjoy scenic routes, participate in group rides, or push your limits with advanced training plans, Rouvy has you covered. Rouvy also offers flexible pricing, allowing you to pause your subscription or choose duo or group plans to share the experience. From exploring new places to serious training, Rouvy has something for every cyclist. Ready to ride the world? Visit rouvy.com and start your journey today. I think it depends on what level you're at. I think if you're targeting a sportif this year and you're riding the bike 6 to 10 hours a week and cycling is stay fit and you're not worried about getting every single percentage out of yourself, go use something like the Breakaway app. Brilliant. Founded by Christian Van de Velde, former US Postal Garmin rider. Brilliant. And you get a lot of bang for the buck. I can't remember how much it costs. It's like £5 a month or something like that. You're not going to get a real world human coach coaching you for €5 a month. He's going to charge you a hell of a lot more. You know, the top coaches are, a percentage of your salary if you're a world tour rider. I don't think AI coaching is there for coaching top end riders yet. If you're a Cat 1, Cat 2 rider and cycling is a huge part of your life, working with an AI coach just isn't going to cut it. The coach earns his money when things go wrong, when you're not feeling good, when you have a good day, bad day, and you're trying to identify patterns. I think I spoke with Peter Leo, who's the coach for Jaco Alula and the Australian track team who broke the world's team pursuit record at the recent Olympics. So he's one of the best coaches in the world at the moment, and he thinks AI is a super valuable assistant coach. So you can look at things like Whoop data, and then you can start taking your Whoop data and correlating that to your Training Peaks data, and you can say, okay, now let's use AI to figure the nights that we done threshold sessions after 6 o'clock, what effect did that have on sleep? The nights that we woke up the next day with very good heart rate variability, what did we do training the previous day? And you can start to build big data patterns using your Whoop and Training Peaks. So they're very bullish on that use of AI as like a research assistant. And I think that's where I see it for the next few years as well. I think that's a wrap for today, Sarah. Folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rider Support. If you enjoyed this, click up here. There's another one you're going to love. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have some huge interviews coming up in the next couple of months. Chat to you soon.